Like the title of the video says, we're going to be covering Protea and all of her abilities. So today we're just going to be covering the first of her abilities, but to preface everything, I was kind of concerned when they released her. I thought they were kind of signaling that they were going to try to replace Bobbin in some way. It's pretty nice that they're not going to do that. She really doesn't have any overlap with him. It seems like she has her own feeling, her own vibe, and she's pretty strong in her own right. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at the ability we're covering today, and that is Grenade Fan. So throwing out 3 grenades in an arc, you basically have 2 different versions of this skill. There's the tap and the hold, and you can invert these in the options menu, so you can tap or hold different ones if you prefer one or the other. But if you tap it by default, you get Shrapnel Vortex. It creates a slashing, staggering swirl of shrapnel. Now this is basically just a damage over time grenade. You get 3 of them. When you throw it out, it deals damage and it can apply dots. It's kind of hard to nail down the exact status chance of the dot, of the slash proc. The wiki says it's 33%, and that sounds about right. So I think it's correct. Then you also have shield satellites. You reconfigure 3 grenades to work as overcharging shield generators, protecting her, her allies, and her companions. When these shields break, a satellite is destroyed to extend the period of invulnerability. Worth noting is even though it says 3 grenades, it actually means 4. So jumping out, let's go ahead and take a look and see what these abilities look like. So this is going to be your standard damage over time grenades. So they kind of swirl around. Now I have one of my energy colors as black, so it's not quite as vibrant and colorful to get in people's ways. I generally like to do that with my ability colors, but you will notice your energy colors do affect the UI element in the bottom right of your screen. See that down there? The text is in black, and then the little nodes themselves are filled in with black. So it's a little bit harder to read, but just keep in mind your UI elements are affected by your energy color. So this is the damage over time portion. You notice there are 3 grenades. 1, 2, 3. They deal very good DPS, and we'll get into some of the specifics in a minute. The reason I came over here mainly, though, is because if you throw out the shield generators, they look a little differently, and you'll also notice there are 4 of them. So for whatever reason, even though it says it's 3, even though the offensive version has 3, there's actually 4 for the defensive version. When you get near them, one of them will pick up, and it will orbit around you, basically granting you a big boost of immediate shields and then a shield regen over time. So those are probably the most important basics about how these abilities work. Now, as long as you have one of those shields on you, if your shields get taken out, your shield gating invulnerability will be extended by 2 seconds. What's important about this is the fact that that 2-second duration does not scale with ability strength. There's a couple aspects of these skills, like, typical Warframe, where abilities may or may not scale depending on what they do and how they do it. So just keep in mind the invulnerability duration does not scale with ability duration. So jumping back into it, let's go ahead and take a look at the damaging component first, and then we'll jump back and then check out the shields completely separately. So the first 3 stats we have here on the card, Drain, Duration, and Radius, apply to both of these. So they always cost 25, whether you use offensive or defensive. They always have a duration of 13 seconds, and their radius is 5 meters. Now there is a little bit of a distinction between the radiuses. For the Vortex, the Shrapnel, the DPS version, the radius is actually the damage radius that it basically maintains. The radius for the shield version is the radius that it takes for you to pick it up. After you've picked it up, range doesn't do anything for this ability, so it's really just attaching range. So range really isn't that important for shield satellites. In terms of duration, duration is sort of important for both. It's how long you have your shield satellite for and how long your damage over time grenades last in the world. And then strength affects both the damage, the shields that you gain, and then the shields per second that are generated. So efficiency obviously lowers the drain cost, as this is a cheap skill and you get all 3 grenades, or 4 in the case of shield. You get 25 cost. It's really efficient, so you don't ever need efficiency if you're really just focusing on Grenade Fan for your builds. Now, I think her other abilities are worth taking along. In almost every circumstance, you should probably focus on having at least 2 of them being viable. So that being said, efficiency can get dumped a little bit for Grenade Fan, but you may not want to do that for the other skills. Now, looking at her passive, and I'll cover this in every video, every 4th ability cast grants an additional 100% power strength. Now this is worded a little bit weird, so it's not exactly evident what it does, but effectively what that means is every 4th ability you cast gets 100% ability strength. So if you actually come into your build, and I'll just drop Blind Rage here. If you ever do that and you look at your abilities, if ability strength affects what your skill does, then your passive will affect that aspect. So here we can see that our shields, our burst shields from the satellites, and our shields per second are both affected. So that will also be affected by our passive. Our damage over time effect by our shrapnel, including the damage over time from our slash procs from the actual status itself, those also get increased by the ability strength from both the passive and from ability mods. And you can see all the other abilities have various scalings as well. So that basically covers how the passive interacts with Grenade Fan. It just increases the ability strength for that one single cast, and then it resets. Now this is really nice because Grenade Fan is so cheap, we can kind of spam a bunch of them out there, and you'll notice as I cast these, there is no limit to how many you can have out in the world. I can literally have as many as I can cast. Now that becomes very, very powerful for a number of reasons, but let's go ahead and cover the damage version first. So I'm going to spawn a Corrupted Heavy Gunner here, and we're just going to see sort of what it does to an enemy. So I'm going to go ahead and spawn some here, right underneath his feet, and you're going to see that he takes damage, and every once in a while he'll get slashed. So you can see we got up to 6-7 slashes, which that's not bad damage. Right? That's not bad damage against this level of enemy for one set of grenades with no mods attached. Now, you also saw that he's getting staggered. Now, this is super important because this stagger is based on your location, not the location of your abilities. So notice the abilities are behind him, but he is being pushed away from me, right? Even though the grenade should push him towards me. So effectively your push, your stagger, is always going to be locationally based on where you are, not where the enemy is in relativity to your ability itself. So if you see I come over here, he'll start getting pushed away from me, even though he was just getting pushed the opposite direction. So that's a pretty important distinction when you're trying to set this up. You can't do kind of a cool trap where you throw one set of grenades here and then one set of grenades here, and he'll just be stuck in the middle. It doesn't work that way. He'll always just push away from you. It's still not a bad idea to surround a person with grenades just so more proc at a time. But just keep in mind you can't really stagger trap, quote unquote, an enemy. Now, you'll notice that the damage over time slash on these guys, because they're so heavily armored, it's not showing exactly how much we should be doing. These slash procs are doing 18 when they should be doing, 500. However, the slashes, because they penetrate armor, do a great deal of damage. So this is a very effective ability against armored units and against health units. It's gonna struggle a little bit versus certain types of enemies. But let me go ahead and kill this guy, and then we're going to spawn in a nullifier, and we're just going to take a look at something real quick. So we have a nullifier spawned over here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to spawn an ability right here. You'll notice these things don't exactly destroy the bubble or anything like that. So this isn't This isn't going to work for, you know, damaging. This is pretty standard. This is just how abilities work. That's the whole point of nullifiers. I just wanted to be a little bit thorough there. So let me go ahead and get rid of him. And bring back our, what was it, a heavy gunner? Doesn't super matter. Just going to bring him back in the list real quick so we have something out there. So that kind of covers it for the DPS portion. Just realize though, just to be a little bit more clear on the passive combination, if you have Blind Rage and your passive, you will be at 300% ability strength, or 299. It doesn't double it. It wouldn't be 400, right? So it's just a flat 100% ability strength increase on your passive. Now, that kind of covers it for the damage portion. The defensive portion is a bit more complicated. So like we talked about, it gives you a flat shield amount, it gives you shield per second, and then it additionally gives you the ability that when your shields get destroyed completely, the satellite detonates itself and it gives you longer duration. Now this becomes really interesting when you look at the fact that our pickup range is pretty decent by default, and we don't really need to share with anybody. So as you can see, this guy kills me, that's my shield gate, and then I die, right? So what we're going to do now is I'm going to do the same exact thing, except I'm going to pop my shields. So I have invincibility right now. I'm going to wait till he pops my shield gate, and now I'm going to pop some shields. Oh, I didn't get him out in time. And that's actually a good time to talk about cast speed, right? So with cast speed, you can pop these out a little bit quicker. However, I don't think cast speed is super viable on this skill at least, and really on most of her skills. So most of your animation is balanced between front loading and back loading, right? So we don't have like a big wind up to our skill and then it happens and then we're free to do what we want. There's a decent amount that you can do before and then a decent amount after for the animation. So what that means is we don't really need to get out of our animation quicker or slower. And it doesn't give us a lot of benefit to take cast speed because these things come out fairly quickly. But for certain characters like maybe Inaros or Harrow, where they have huge wind-ups, you want cast speed on those kind of characters because you need the ability to come out faster. This one is kind of 50-50, so it doesn't super matter how quickly it comes out. It may help you sometimes, but cast speed is not that great. So let me go ahead and unpause his AI, and I'm gonna come down here, and I am going to pop my shields. Now notice my shields. See how it went through multiple times? As long as I'm casting these shields, I can get quite a few out. He can't get through them because every single time I lose my shields, another one of those satellites attaches to me. So as long as you have some nearby, you're effectively invincible, right? So you don't have to share these. You can just pop them directly at your feet and you'll stay invincible for a very long time. And keep in mind, this is without any mods. This is no adaption, this is no increased shield size, shield recharge speed, no nothing. No arcanes. So just keep in mind the shield things can be spammed on yourself extremely efficiently. Another aspect that is kind of hidden but is pretty important is the fact that the shield recharge speed, that 50 down there, both skills with ability strength and shield recharge speed. So if you notice, whenever we use this ability, we get a bunch of shields immediately. So I'm going to go from 450 to I think 950, and then we're going to start regenning shields over that. Now these are over shields at this point because obviously my shields are full. So this does generate over shields, and it will go all the way up to our maximum amount, which I think ends at like 1650 or so. But our shield regen speed should go up based on our mods as well. So What that means is our overshield regen doesn't go up, but our blue health shield does. So just keep in mind, if you do shield recharge things, it will kind of dip into your arcanes as well as her shield satellites, but it does not affect overshields. So I think those cover the majority of what her abilities kind of do and how they work. The biggest thing to remember, and this is super important, is that you can't really scale the shield gating duration bonus from your shield satellites. Okay, like that would just be way too strong, so you can't do it. Now, in closing, let's talk about how I would recommend building around this skill. Her other abilities I think are really good, so I don't want to say you always take Blind Rage, but you can. You can take Blind Rage on this skill pretty efficiently and still spam grenades and have a ton of damage. Duration is fairly important for the shield satellites. You're going to get that shield over time effect and the safety net of having a shield satellite on you for longer. But if you're kind of standing in the middle of 4 of them, like, and you're kind of being in a mobile turret, then duration isn't as important. It's still kind of nice though. For the damaging grenades, duration is extremely important. It's very, very good. Strength, ability strength is awesome on both of these skills. It is very, very, very strong, and your passive scales that up even more. So those are both going to be really, really nice. In terms of efficiency, we kind of covered that on Blind Rage a little bit. It doesn't super matter. So for ability range, our final stat, ability range is going to be not really important at all to our satellites, our shield satellites, but for the damage over time grenade, it is extremely powerful and extremely important to get those overlapping bubbles. So I think that actually pretty much covers it for this ability. If you guys have anything to add, just leave it in the comment section below. I might have missed it. I haven't been playing Protea for long. She hasn't been out for very long. And as always, thanks for watching, guys.